You're listening to the Beans and Dice podcast, a podcast about how we game.
That's right, how we game Thursday night. I'm supposed to be quiet, right? Like timid. We're having some audio difficulties. Got a couple minutes behind, but I'm hoping that the audio gremlins will resolve themselves as we continue with the show. So any feedback on the audio in the comments would be greatly appreciated. We always appreciate the interaction in the comments. But most importantly, the fact that this is a live call-in show. We'll be turning on those phone lines here shortly to allow you to interact with us live by calling in. But before we do that, I want to introduce the guests that are with me today. My man Wayne, coming out of Lutz, Florida.
Yep. Hey, how's it going?
And as you can see by this empty seat right here, our buddy Rob is out sick today. So please keep him in your thoughts and prayers, and hopefully he'll heal up enough to get back to us shortly. But the most important guest that we have today, coming to you from Ogre Crossing Games, the publisher of Alien Petshop, designer and artist, Greg Grimsby. Hello, Greg.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to chatting with you all about games and your peaking audio levels.
Audio's my thing. Like, it hurts my heart when my audio's not right.
Hang your head in shame and
Yes, I've tried a lot of stuff tonight trying to figure this out.
He has, you have.
It'll get fixed the moment the show's done tonight. You know,
It happens every time. That seems to be the way. This is the way. But Greg, you reached out to us as a thank you. Our buddy Nick Oben, by the way, happy birthday, Nick Oben. Nick Oben the Greek out in Wesley Chapel. It is his birthday today. Otherwise, he would have joined us on the show.
Yeah.
Wayne and Greg sound great. Thanks, Kyle, for letting us. Wayne and Greg sound great. Carlos, you sound like trash.
the cheap Samsung mic I got.
I don't know what it was, man.
Yeah, I think Nick was the evangelist for Alien Petshop at Your Turn Con this year. He made a bunch of us play it, and it was good.
We played it live.
Live, yeah.
And Greg commented on the YouTube, thanking us for playing it on the live stream, and I shot him a message to say, hey, if you ever want to chat board games, please reach out. And I do that a lot. And rarely ever get anybody coming back, but Greg responded back like, that sounds great. Like, let's do it.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah. So I apologize. I didn't even realize you were both the designer and the artist. That's really cool. A lot of times you don't see that. So that's what were your inspiration for the artwork? Obviously we saw some of the artists it's pop culture stuff, right? But anything else that sort of inspired you?
Well, I'll start off by just describing the development of the game and cover some of that. So I'm the artist, I'm the designer.
I really want to get into a lot of that stuff too, but I almost forgot the question I always start with. The one I ask first. I see the audio issues are making me like not be on task. Before I open up the phone lines, Greg, are you now or have you ever been a gamer?
Man, I've been a gamer forever. I've been designing games for a long time. I remember when I was probably about 14 when I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons, right? And I loved it. Painting miniatures, playing, the theater of the mind, chucking dice, right? And this was back before it was cool to do that, right? In the 80s. So I've been gaming ever since. I spent a long time in digital game design. I worked at Electronic Arts for 7 years. I worked on Warhammer Online, Age of Reckoning, which was an MMO that came out 10 years ago. Oh, I mean, time flies. So yes, I am absolutely a gamer, digital gamer, board gamer. I mean, you can see him back there, I love games, love making games, so...
So that's interesting.
That's an easy question.
Yeah, an easy one. You kind of have seen a bunch of board game designers in the last few years that have background in video game design. And I know I listen to the Ludology podcast, and you listen to Jeff Eggleston. He teaches at NYU. and a bunch of those guys teach NYU, and there's a digital design and computer design courses, and now they're working in the board game design to it.
Yeah.
How do you see that jump between the two? Is it sort of seamless? Was there a retraining of your brain when it comes to from computer design to game design to tabletop game design?
There's so much slippage that's going on now between the digital space and the analog space. It's like a really amazing time to be like making stuff and teaching stuff. My day job is I'm a professor of game design at George Mason University. So
that's Rob's school. Rob graduated George Mason. Rob, tell him all about it. Oh, Rob, you're not here today, Rob.
Way, super small world.
Friggin' alumni sitting here, and Rob misses today.
Oh man, you have to have me back on again, and we can.
No, that's a must. You have a professional microphone. You're in. You have better audio than me. I think I'm going to transfer the show to you next week.
No.
Oh, that is a small world, man.
Yeah, so I teach game design there, but my focus is mostly on the visuals, the animation, modeling, concept art, and all that stuff. But so you see games that come to Kickstarter that are these analog versions of digital games, right? Frostpunk, Mechs versus Minions. I mean, the list just goes on, right? And what's amazing is that ultimately game design still has this one common goal, which is to provide an experience to your players, to invite them into your kind of interactive space, and whether it's narratively driven or puzzle driven, you want them to experience certain things. And the digital roots and the analog roots, it's still a lot of the same thing. You're trying to get people to feel clever. You're trying to get them to maybe have a story arc. You're trying to make them have moments. And that's the same whether you're playing a first-person game, or you're playing an RPG, or you're chucking dice, or you're cracking some cardboard open and playing something there. So it's awesome. I love seeing the hybrids and seeing people going across each of those media and making stuff. It's super cool.
And I think the more you see people bouncing between the two mediums, the more video gamers become board gamers and expand the hobby even more, which is great. And I think, I think that there's differences to design probably between the two. There's a lot of similarities, but I think it makes game design better if you are able to design different mediums, different spaces, so it's definitely pretty cool. And now we kind of Rob's probably going to be like cursing himself. It's like, oh man, I went there too. So that's pretty cool. So
I do want to let the folks at home know, and gentlemen, keep me up on the audio levels. Let me know how it's going.
Sounding okay. You just got
to change
like
stuff.
A golf tournament, man.
Okay, that's right. I got to talk like I'm at golf. So phone lines are open for all you folks at home. The phone lines are open, 813-618-7099. Now that we've met Greg and understand what he's been through gaming wise and what he's doing now, you can call in and ask him questions yourself.
Otherwise, I'll just keep going because I like asking questions.
Well, I can come back to your question about some of the inspiration for some of the pets and the visuals. So, I see Alien Petshop as a love letter to sci-fi. And I remember certain episodes of Star Trek, and I remember certain movies where there are different creatures and critters that do these chaotic things. And I really wanted to capture that in a board game. I felt it was like untapped territory. And so that was kind of the inspiration. I think most of us have, seen some of those shows and experienced them in a similar way. That's kind of like the seed that fed Alien Petshop, was to allow people to collect these cute pets. And I love like real pet shops, like not like the go to Walmart, like it's horrible for the fish, but like in Lansing, Michigan, where I lived for a couple of years, there's an amazing mom and pop pet shop there. Beautiful pets. They care for the pets. And it's like transporting when you go into a really cool pet shop, or even like going to like an actual aquarium or going to the zoo. It's like it's amazing to see these creatures and see what
It's an
nature
experience
has.
itself.
Yeah.
It itself is an experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to just capture a little bit of that kind of feeling of curating these really cool looking creatures. And this isn't like a spreadsheety kind of simulation of running a business. This is more of the pet shop is the pets are the star of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the I got to play it once so far at the shop. I know so we were at Your Turn Con, which is the board game cafe that I was telling you about when we were offline there earlier, and they had, I guess they had done a retailer pledge, or they had kickstarted a bunch of copies for people at the store. Nick came in and got his copy, and then grabbed 3 or 4 people and punched it and played it. And then he's like, "Oh, this is really cool. You guys want to play?" And I'm like, "Well, let's throw it live. This looks like a kind of it's a fun game. The color, it's going to grab you. I mean, I think that it's a game that, for those of you who are listeners that haven't seen it, if you look at the photos of it, it's a super colorful, and it looks like it's a perfect game for kids. But there's some, when we played it at Your Turn Con, there were no kids. There was 3 or 4 of us that were pretty hardcore gamers, and we were like, okay, this is pretty cool. I like it. There's some thinkiness here that you can gamer it and think about where connect the dots and run a little engine there as you're building your pets up. So it was surprising. I think some of it, a couple of people sat down to the table like, "Oh, what's this? This looks like it's a kid's game." And everyone got up from the table and like, "Oh, hey, that was pretty good. That was a good game. We really enjoyed that experience." For
Awesome.
played it, so yeah.
One person who played it, who was a designer I really respect. He played it and he said, "You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of a lighter version of Wingspan, with like really cute pets." And I said, "You're pretty clever," because that's kind of what I was. I had not played Wingspan when I was developing Pet Shop, because Wingspan maybe came out like 6 to 9 months before we went to Kickstarter. So it was just kind of out there. But that same idea of having a tableau, and there's engine building, and there's this plethora of creatures and or birds to purchase, and we do have the dice chucking and the dice placement here, which is a big difference. But yeah, I've heard from a lot of people who've played it with their kids, and their kids really enjoy it. And
Accessible.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Accessible would be the words that I would use.
Yeah, I was thinking like when I play the game immediately, I have an 8-year-old, and I'm like, "Oh, this is a game that I could teach him this game and he could play it." And then I'm immediately thinking in my head, this game is also infinitely expandable, and it can pitching expansions here you probably already thinking about. But I'm thinking like this is the kind of game where it's like it's a simple teach. It's got the good rules. It's got a good base, and then you could easily add in more pets, different rows of abilities to add to those pets, so you can kind of mix and match things. So you can make it
kind of like what Stegmaier's done here with Wingspan. All these different expansions, which are just more cards.
Yeah,
all this is just more cards.
I mean, as you think about that, I mean, I guess that's always the question: is when you design a game, is there stuff you took out that's like, well, here's the first expansion, or is it this is what you designed, and then you got to go to this? I always feel like people over design, and then when they get to the production part of it, they've pulled back, and the stuff that they took out ends up being refined later for future expansions.
Yeah, that's a great point. When we did play testing over the course of about a year and a half, there were certainly some ideas that came. There's some ideas that went. Some stuff was too complex, or too fiddly, or whatever. And ultimately, I'm like super proud of everything that went in, and I was excited to be able to get 8 different shops in, 4 on each board, and just dozens and dozens of pets. So I feel really proud and confident that we didn't hold anything back.
Cool.
Like everything is in there that I felt would be that is what the game wants to be,
Okay.
and that we had the most fun with when we were playing. However, probably as soon as June in 2021, like right when the Kickstarter was getting ready to go, I started testing expansion ideas because Carlos is right. You point to that wall of expansions for Wingspan, and Pet Shop certainly has a lot of space for more cute-looking creatures, and I've been playing with ideas of have an expansion where you explore a whole nother section of space and it unlocks new pets for you, and they're more exotic and they're slightly more dangerous, and possibly adding some extra wrinkles to the engine building process. I've actually sketched like dozens of them already, so it's just kind of a business question, right? And ultimately, you can make lots of Wingspan expansions when you sold 1 million copies of the base game.
It's true. That is true.
Have not sold 1 million copies of Alien Petshop, so I just had to make that decision because I had to do all the art and I had to do all the design, and my day job is to teach people how to make games, so I had to balance that act.
So what was your you obviously you went to Kickstarter and you did self-publishing through Kickstarter. What made you decide to do that versus seeking an already established company for production?
Yeah, I think COVID was probably the main reason, just because of the timing. Like I was determined and aggressively ready to get this game out in late 2020. And so we were still pretty much in the throes of COVID. So there weren't any meet and greets. There wasn't going any to conventions. And so I decided, look, I want to get this game out. I don't want to wait to hook up with a publisher and then wait for them to develop the game. And in that development, it adds another year. I would say if I had happened upon a publisher in that time frame, I wouldn't have been opposed to it. It just didn't happen. Yeah. And so I decided to self-publish, and it was a learning experience for me. It was awesome in that now I can say, okay, this Kickstarters are a ton of work.
Next semester, you're going to teach a course on Kickstarter to your.
No.
Crowdfunding, yes.
And the thing is, the Kickstarter is actually the easy part. Okay, I don't know if other people who've been on the show have told you that. The Kickstarter part is the easy part. The part that is a complete and utter and continual pain is running your own business. I don't know if you guys run your own business, but running your own business and doing taxes and all that stuff, it is a nightmare. And you know, it's great to do continued fulfillment to customers, after the Kickstarter, but it's the running the business side of things that I would say to anybody who's thinking about starting their own company. I think you need to be in a position in your life where you can probably spend at least half of your time being a business owner.
And that's Greg. That's because, and help me out here. How's my audio? Is it terrible still?
It's okay.
Okay, it's okay. I'll live with okay. Is it because you self-published? So because of the self-publishing, you had to start your own business. Had you published with as a designer with a publisher, you think that would have taken a lot off of your plate?
At least in terms of all the business, like running my own business, starting my own business, the manufacturing. Oh my goodness, manufacturing. Finding a manufacturer that I trust, building that relationship with them, all the emails and conversations with my wonderful contact over in Ningbo, China, who did the publishing at Gameland. They were great, but sending files back and forth. There's this hidden cost in terms of time and energy that is just just buried in any project that gets successfully kickstarted and produced. And it's just me. It's just me, folks, doing all that stuff, and it's a lot. So
Yeah, I think so I'm a Kickstarter guy. I've done 60 to 70 Kickstarters, and I what as a buyer, not a person that runs it, definitely not running it. But no, I think what continues to astonish me is when you look at the comments and people complain about various things, and especially like yourself, self-published, small companies. I've done a bunch of those, and it's like, I guess part of it is because maybe I've listened to like the Ludology podcast and listened to the people who've done this before, just how complex it is to like you're communicating from Illinois to China back and forth, language barriers. You're sending proofs back and forth. The text files, like you have to send them a file. They got to put it in their system. Okay, does this look good? Like just the amount of time and effort that takes, like. People just need to like relax when it comes to complaining about like, no, I do. It annoys me. I'm like, guys, like, you've never seen this side of the business before. Cause you've always ever like, prior to Kickstarter, we would walk into a game store. This game looks cool. I'll buy it. Well, that was 3 years in the making, right? Or more sometimes, and now that we can see the underbelly of game production, we think it should take faster than it does. And I just, that's gotta be crazy. I don't know if I have the patience to put up with that. Like, I mean, I give kudos to you for doing it because I would lose my mind.
Well, Wayne, my backers were they were amazing.
That's good.
They were very understanding. They were patient, and I think they were very invested in supporting Alien Petshop. And even though we had delays when we had ships going sideways in canals, and we had COVID, and they had this and that, right? I don't think I had a single negative post on Kickstarter.
That's awesome.
It might have been, one or two of these like, so when is it coming? When is it coming? It was just all super positive, and I think that's a little unique. Because you do hear a lot of cases when that's not, but maybe just the project was small enough that it didn't get that critical mass where just the odds of it, you're going to get some bad eggs in their backing. But they were super supportive, and they gave me great feedback as we were talking about adding some extra pets, because we actually overfunded it, which was great. We hit some stretch goals. We put some extra pets in there, so that was great. We had some people who were able to help me name some of the pets and pick which sketch they liked the best, and that was awesome, right? It was awesome to allow people to get involved with the creative process, and I think it meant a lot to them too.
Well, I think that's always cool, and you let people look at the sketches and stuff like that to see. Again, I think that's the more you educate people. Hey, well, here's the sketches I got to do, and here's how long it takes me to do them. But what do you guys think is the best one? That's awesome. I love that concept.
I want to know more about that art background, because one of the things that I found odd in looking up a little more details about your situation here is you're the artist. Like, that's not normal. That is not normal. You have folks that are dedicated artists who aren't even gamers. Milo, right? He does all those beautiful art games for help me out here. Endless Winter. I mean, we can name a ton of them.
I can't think of it. Yeah. The Micho.
Micho. The Micho. Yeah. But he doesn't game. He's not a gamer. That's not his thing.
It's Greg and Ryan Lockett.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of.
Where does your art background come from? You talked about sketching. Where'd that art background come from?
So my degree is in painting and drawing back many years ago at James Madison University in Virginia, and I got my master's at GMU, which gets confusing sometimes, JMU and GMU. But I've always been drawing, I've always been painting, and doing the digital stuff. And so it was the most awesome thing about working on Pet Shop was that it was a departure from some of the realism that I used to work in. And I got a chance instead to draw these cute little chibi characters that were like just super adorable. I'm like, I've never drawn anything like that before. And it was super fun to draw these.
Is how do you turn a Xeno alien into a cutie? Like, right? That's a fun place to
Right.
start your mind.
Yeah, that's the love letter to sci-fi. I mean,
Yep.
I love those tropes, and it was fun to take some of the ones that we know and just kind of spin them a little bit, and to do something that we kind of understand in the science fiction, landscape there, and do a little cute version of it, and kind of subvert expectations and put it in this family game. If you've played it, you've seen some of the flavor text, and there's callbacks to like other board games in there too, if you really pay attention. So it's both an ode to science fiction, but there's some nods to other board games in the space too.
Were you a fan of the Orville? I know you talked about the science fiction stuff. Was the Orville one of the shows you watched?
I have only watched maybe one or two episodes, just because there's just so much.
There was a
stuff to
creature
watch.
in there that got me feeling like one of the creatures in the Orville. But it's a blob. It's a generic blob. So
There's a good amount of Star Trek references, which Yorville borrows from heavily. But yeah,
I wasn't sure if we had that
layers
connection somewhere in there.
yeah.
Now, we talked a little bit about the feeling of Wingspan in this game with the collecting of the critters, but one of the feelings that you brought up in your thoughts on creating expansions. Now, how bad's my audio, folks? Is it terrible? I'm going to come back to my audio all the time. Okay. You can hear me. That's good. You talked about the dangers, the hazards, right? That's one thing that like even Wingspan didn't go into. That piece that adds that negative play experience because there's stuff that hurts you.
Mm-hmm.
That you had to think about that as you designed it. This hurts sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
How'd that thought process go with you, your friends, your playtesters?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that speaks to what I felt was one of the pillars of the game. It was one of those almost non-negotiables for me. And when I think about design, I think about pillars. And those pillars are basically the ideas that hold up the game. And just like a temple, if one of those pillars falls down, the pediment falls and the whole building goes bye-bye. So one of the pillars was I wanted to invoke the feeling of chaos that these aliens do in the tropes, whether it's like gremlins and
Here's the trope
gremlins.
right here. This card is probably one of my favorite cards in the game. I love the name. Let me see. I can't zoom in, can I? There it is. Threadian.
There's
And
his head. Yeah.
I mean, if you ever watched the Disney movie Lilo and Stitch, like means family. I'm sorry. Like the first thing I saw as soon as I saw this guy. So and that's a big part of that movie. That's a big part of what makes that movie great for my kids and my family. It's the collateral damage of having an alien as a pet.
Exactly.
yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? That's actually a great example. I'll have to add that to my examples.
We got a call coming in. Let's see if hopefully the phone line works. Beans and Dice podcast. State your name. Where you calling from?
This is Ron from Atlanta.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, Ron. And Wayne, let me know in the chat about audio if I need to make changes. Ron, we've got Greg Grimsby, designer of Alien Petshop, on the line. What you got going on?
Good evening, Greg. So I want to say that, 5,000 board games that come out every year, and it can be really hard to keep up with stuff. And like, I would not know about this game except for this channel, but it looks really, really cool. I really like the art style. I still don't know much about it, but it looks really fascinating. And I don't know, like, what's the age range on this game? Because I came in like about 25 minutes into this call.
Yeah, it's meant for. It says on 11 and up on the box, but you can play it with an 8-year-old if they know like modern board games. You probably could go 7. The game has an easy mode actually, where some of the more complex things you don't even have to mess with. And so that's like a good kind of teach it to your younger kids, and then when they got easy mode, you can flip over some of the cards and the boards, and then they introduce some slightly more in-depth, like the full experience. So I say 8 to 11, especially if they play other games. Yeah.
So
They'll get it.
that brings up an interesting point. Is so the 11 plus on the box. Like we've talked about this before on the show recently. Is the 11 plus mostly regarding the size of the pieces? Like we know in Germany, or the age range is for the size of the pieces, not necessarily for the complexity of the age range the kid can play the game. It's about safety. Is that sort of where that 11 came from as well? It's more about that there's dice and small pieces that a kid can swallow.
Yeah, there are different ages based upon different countries, and so we
Okay.
did ship internationally. And 11 was an age for one of the countries. I don't recall which. And ultimately, I said, you know what, 11's probably fine. I understand that an 8-year-old could play, although there is a good bit of math if you want the game to have a good bit of math. And I mean, Wayne, if you really sit down and start crunching the numbers, you're like, okay, if I buy this pet will be worth 4 this turn, and it costs me 3, and so I'll make 2 profit, and I can take that 2 profit, and I can use it to buy this, and then next turn. So that there's a lot of like numbers that can be spinning in your head that even if an 8-year-old is good at math, they might not even have like the attention span or the desire to do that. So 11, I felt okay with it, especially since it aligned with some of those age cutoffs for different kinds of manufacturing testing and requirements. Although the game was tested for the CE and other safety stuff.
Yeah, cool. Ron, we'll get back to you in a second. So that's interesting. When you did now the shipping internationally and figuring out age ranges and age on the box and that kind of stuff, did your China contact, did the producer help you with that, or did you just on your own to research and find out?
It's all me.
Wow, that's crazy.
There's more stuff to learn, man.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my goodness. I don't even want to talk about trying to get games from like the factory onto the boats, and from the not to mention just one boat, but 3 different boats. You know, there's just so much stuff. It was a lot of work. So
Awesome.
That much work, you don't do it unless you are confident in what you've done, if you have faith in it and you love it, and you know that there is an audience out there that it's really going to resonate with. And, I feel that's the case. I know that like no game is perfect. No game is for everybody. But I think there is a really strong niche of people who love family games, and maybe they play a good bit of games. And I felt that it would speak pretty well, especially if they were looking for something that's a little different, not about pirates, not about zombies, it's about cute pets. So there you go.
Yeah, so Ron, back to you, Ron. But I would say I play this game, and I think 8 plus would easily, as far as complexity, your little ones could play it.
My wife and I were talking about that tonight during dinner. I don't know how bad my audio is, but
You're good.
We talked about our 11-year-old being fine at it, even younger ages being fine at it. So I know you probably got a little conservative in deciding that age group for it, but it's definitely at that family level.
Yeah. So maybe in retrospect, I could have and should have pushed for 8. And you know what? Lesson learned. First game, first company. I don't. That's one thing I don't mind if maybe I miscalculated on that a little bit. Oh, Wayne, you're muted, I think.
Hey, look at that. Sorry. I said I think age range. Most of us on age range on boxes, I think most gamers just kind of ignore that.
It's always wrong.
It's always wrong.
Just like the time to play the game.
Usually, yes.
What else you got, Ron?
So I'm pretty excited about my Christmas vacation coming up here.
I hear you might
get to
be
go
in the
home.
Tampa area.
Yeah, I'll be in Orlando, but that's close enough. So
We'll get those dates settled. Find a day that you're open, and we will find a way to make ourselves open, even if we have to meet halfway to do something. So if you're flying to Orlando, we're in Tampa. We can meet somewhere in Orlampa, somewhere between here and Orlando, and get something going.
yeah, the thing is that I think I might be interested in coming out to one of the two game stores out there you guys talk about so much.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think it'll be a problem, but we'll talk about that. But
I got a chair right here
I'm
for
looking
you.
forward
It's
to
empty.
it. So last thing, real quick. I saw some advertising for some Zombicide Black Plague promos that was right up my alley, and I pre-ordered those really quickly.
Thundercats roll.
the Thundercats, all three of them, all three of the promo packs, and it just got me to thinking. C-Mind isn't the only one that does this, right? But like they're the ones that are kind of known for it, where they put out all of this content, these little packs with their different games, right? And some of them licensed, some of them not. And I didn't think of C-Mind games as a lifestyle game, but like some of the games are really lifestyle games. Zombicide,
Your wallet disagrees
like,
with you. Your wallet knew it was a lifestyle game.
Yeah. And so, I just want to get your thoughts on that, because I know obviously, like Warhammer and your CCGs like Magic and your LCGs, all that kind of stuff. Those are definitely lifestyle games, but like, what do you think about like the board games that are lifestyle games? What?
I don't know, Greg. You have any thought on lifestyle games with regards to board games at all?
You know what's amazing about that question is that I just recently got back into Magic the Gathering.
Ooh.
Talk about a lifestyle game. I think it's one of the top three. It's what's fun about lifestyle games and hobby games is that you have like this community, right? And you also have this like continuity of play in that like you're going to play it maybe every week. You're going to play it with the same friends or new people, and there's always new content. And so it's like something that's comfortable, right? It's just like cozy, and you love coming back and you love sharing memories about it. But obviously what's important about lifestyle games is that there's new content for it. And so without that content, that new content, you might move on to other things.
Yeah.
And I think that's what.
Like, how many of those are still in shrink, Carlos?
All of them.
All of them.
What do you expect me to say?
I think that's
it's what C-Mind is learning right now, and I really want to talk, but I'm worried about my audio.
Talk, man. Go.
It's really what C-Mind I think is starting to figure out. And a lot of their Kickstarters were this whoosh, everything up front. Marvel United, whoosh, everything up front. But now we're starting to get that drip on the C-Mon front regarding Zombicide, at least. We're getting that drip now that becomes the lifestyle game. I mean, I wasn't into X-Wing for 5 years buying everything that came out for no reason. It was because of the IV drip. Here's the $30. Here's another $30, right? And it wasn't a $1,000 drop up front, but I tell you what, they probably got $2,500 out of me in the life of that game over that period. Yeah. And Ron, you're talking about Thundercats. I think we just had the Ghostbusters recently. They did. I can't remember what the other ones, but they've been coming out with these little special packs.
Yep, TMNT. They have Iron Maiden.
Crazy.
Right, and they're just gonna. I think they're starting to get it together. That you know what, it keeps our game alive in the minds of gamers and the thoughts of gamers, without having to do a new edition.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I've broken myself of the lifestyle game. I was a Magic player in the '90s, and then Carlos, you sound pretty good now. And then I got into HeroClix, and I even worked for WizKids for a bit. I was a judge and judging games, and dropped a lot of money in HeroClix and Mage Knight and Mech Warrior, and I've got an entire closet full of all that. But I think it's like it has to keep you going, right? So there was a period of time where all of a sudden I broke from playing Mech Warrior, Mage Knight, and I never went back and never bought another thing. And HeroClix is still fairly strong. You know, it's still out there. They're still releasing stuff, as far as I know. But I lost it at one point and then just never went back. So it's keeping, like you said, that slow drip. And how do you keep people in? And it's, you know, we talked a week or two ago about Magic, you know, and like their company was actually downgraded by like, you know, the stock market. Cause it's like, whoa, you're coming out with sets so fast, people can't keep up. You're devaluing your product. And so that's
oversaturated.
It's oversaturated. And so like, but then during the pandemic, you couldn't get Magic cards. You couldn't get Pokemon cards because of production, right? So it's interesting. So CMON has to play a dangerous game of how do you release enough of these to keep whetting that appetite and keep people in? And then how do you get new people in? Like, okay, I like the Thundercats, but does that mean now if I want to play Thundercats, I got to go buy like, you know, how much do I got to go buy to get into it and play Thundercats? So that's interesting.
Yeah, have you all played Unmatched by Restoration Games?
He's gonna pull out. He's gonna,
You're gonna appreciate this, Greg.
There you go.
My wife got herself a laser cutter, so I got them all. I'm just missing some of the Marvel stuff. I really haven't gotten into. You're gonna appreciate this.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, look at this beauty! Created a full insert.
Oh, your wife
on the laser
loves
cutter
you.
here to be able to hold everything. And talk about the drip.
Super.
Like this wasn't a big purchase at one time. This was something new came out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's that great idea of we have a system, and it's a flexible system. We have a good design space that gives us the flexibility with the cards, and we're just going to keep coming up with content that pulls from mythology, that pulls from pop culture, that pulls from wherever we want it. And if we can keep coming up with unique twists, and I think there was a podcast. I don't know if it was a board game design roundtable or someone, but one of the designers was on there from Restoration Games who was working on some of the new characters that they're releasing for Unmatched, and he seemed to think that the design space still had a lot of room, and that's going to be the challenge that they face, is how much can they keep kind of pushing at the mechanisms that they have before they start to get a little like repetitive. Maybe you've seen that in play, that this character really is just kind of like a rethemed so-and-so, and maybe you don't care. Like, I still love this character. I love its mechanism, and I love this character because I love it in like the other pop culture reference. So I'm going to play it even though it's similar. But I think it has. Is it a lifestyle game? I mean, Carlos, that's a lot of copies.
My wallet would tell you it's a lifestyle game. There's your answer, Ron.
But I think Unmatched is interesting, because so far I think they've been pretty unique. And at what point, either like you said, do you get repetitive or do you break it by coming out with characters that just don't work together?
Yeah.
And it's interesting that it seems like Unmatched has won the battle, because when's the last time Funko? What's the other one? Funkoverse. When's the last time they came out with a new set? I can't even think of one right now that came out in the last year. So
Ron, you've got your lifestyle game.
The Marvel game, right? What was that?
The card game, Marvel Champions. That's a lifestyle game.
Marvel Champion.
Armada had 3 copies on the shelf last night. Armada Games, our local provider. And I'm like, oh, but I've got so much Marvel United. I can't do both. Was I wrong, Ron? Should I have just picked it up? I hadn't seen a starter in the wild in a while. Ronaldo. Did we lose you, Ron?
Just to let you know, I'm having a hard time hearing Carlos.
Yeah, it's a little low, maybe.
All right, Bobby. Can you hear me now?
All right.
There we go.
Yep, I can.
Marvel Champions. Lifestyle
discussion.
game, yes or no?
Marvel Champions, absolutely. I have everything.
There you
And
go.
it will
There's our
continue that
answer.
way.
Yeah. I just don't play games
All
enough
right.
to have a lifestyle game anymore. I like playing too many different games.
But lifestyle game isn't about playing it. You saw all the shrink that I just pulled out. It's about owning it.
That is true.
I think what got me back into playing Magic again was my wife was she was taught how to play by a friend, and so we've been playing together, and we've got a group of friends that we enjoy playing. So it's ultimately, as games tend to be, it's a vehicle for social interaction. It's a vehicle for getting together with the people that you love spending time with. And the game might even just be kind of like a secondary activity to just hanging out and, being together. But maybe the game is really important to you too. And it really does. It's the focus of the activity. And I think for some people, they don't settle on one game. It's just all the games, right? And so it's game night. Bring over whatever you want. But for other people, it's like, we're going to play Magic tonight, or we're going to play D&D tonight, or we're going to play the next 3 characters that we got for Unmatched. And ultimately, it's awesome. It's the fact that we take this time socially to hang out with people and play these games and have this shared experience. It's super cool.
Yeah.
Well
Now,
said.
if only if I can design one of these games, and that'd be awesome.
You got it. You already got it. Just got to get more pets out, right? Little pet packs. So, was it in the chat here, Carlos? Like Edmund, talked about at the same time, chess, Go, and poker are lifestyle games, right? But no new stuff's coming out. And I think Rich had a great comment. The next one, I suspect if the IP for chess was held by one company and not public domain, you'd probably see different chess pieces or different versions, and there are different versions of chess, and how many different kinds of poker are there, and things like that. But that's also interesting too, is like, how many of these lifestyle games are owned by a company. D&D, one of my all-time favorites. This entire shelf here. How many different versions? They got to come out with new versions every so often to wet the whistle and make you buy new stuff. And I was just looking at the Dragonlance, the Dragonlance release. Go ahead, Ron.
Yep, a new version coming out in 2024.
Yeah, and I'm a big Dragonlance guy, and the new Dragonlance core book you can buy the core book by itself, or you could buy the core book plus the expanded campaign that comes with a board game in a collector's edition for $150, whatever it is. So it's interesting that IPs have to rehash themselves to keep them fresh.
Well, thank you, Ron, for your call tonight. Great conversation started by your call every time. We do appreciate you, Poppy.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Ron. Keep in touch. Let us know when you're going to be in town so we can figure out game day.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. That's our buddy Ron Frazier from Hotlanta doing what the call-in show says it is, a call-in show.
Although sometimes we have guests, people don't call in because the conversation gets flowing, but feel free to interrupt and ask questions. So
lots of good comments in the chat tonight on this topic. It's grown. And I think it started with the conversation about the expansionability. Is that a word? Expansionability of Alien Petshop. The idea that you've got a base system, and the diversity of the game, the diversity of the rules, really come in the cards. And most of your great games, Magic the Gathering included, the rule system is set. It's simple. It's the cards, the rules in the cards that change the way that each game plays and gives you that diversity.
Yeah, and that's an interesting design problem especially with games for younger audiences, is typically you need a certain amount of design space so that you have room to grow, right? And Alien Petshop still slants young enough that there isn't a ton of design space. It's not like even Unmatched, or they've got things that they can do with boards and movement, and they can kind of really completely change the rules on individual cards, right? So you can have that card, and that card has local rules, and those local rules on that card can break stuff, and that adds some complexity, right? And so Unmatched certainly benefits from an older audience. And that's certainly a challenge, and that's some of the stuff that got cut from Alien Petshop was stuff that's like this is a little bit difficult. It's fun. I love the interactions. I love what that pet's doing, but it's not as accessible as we want it to be. So
I love asking when I talk to designers about, because you talked about the pillars of the game. You know, you sir are much more educated in this topic than I am, but I do a lot of work in my work itself with regards to programs, projects, not computer programs. I don't do computers well, but things. And most anything that anyone is tasked to create or do, a piece of them is in it. And I always say, tell me my baby's ugly.
yeah,
Right? What is the one thing that I might love about this thing, this idea, this project, this program that I'm in charge of, that I'm married to, I feel is keystone to it, but it's ugly and I don't see it. Did you have that moment in the design process where you had to let something go, or someone gave you that feedback about your baby being ugly?
well, hopefully that kind of feedback, if it didn't, it wasn't incorporated wholesale, as in like, that's great. That's awesome feedback, and I'm just going to make that change. It might have worked its way in some way. I've gotten some feedback that the game feels a little random, or that there's too much luck in the game, and that one is always a challenge for me, because as I mentioned, how important I feel that the game have a chaotic feel to it. And so what I decided as a design goal was to make mitigating the bad luck as much of the puzzle as smooth sailing. And over the course of the game, you're going to probably roll 20 dice total. And if you know anything about probability, the more dice you roll, the more that the results start to skew to an average center line, and the outliers start to pull away on your bell curve. And so while you still might get an occasional bad roll, they're all going to average out to be a certain number. And so if you think of a game like King of Tokyo, where you again still might roll about 20 dice across the course of the game. They don't put as many mitigations in. You can still Yahtzee, but then you can still get equally bad rolls, because that's how dice work. They don't care what you just rolled. They don't care. You can roll bad again, and that's dice. And so there always was this balance that I tried to strike, in that I want the pets to feel chaotic. I want them to do these things that we've talked about. They do in Lilo and Stitch, and they do in Gremlins, and they do in Star Trek. And that was kind of like the line in the sand that I would not cross, because I felt ultimately if I got rid of it, then it's just a kind of like perfect math, deterministic. And I don't think kids enjoy that. So I think
No.
in terms of kids, they like chucking dice. And, when great things happen, they're like, woohoo. Well, heck, adults too, right? I roll a 20. Yay, nat 20.
The crap tables in the casinos aren't filled up for no reason, right? We know they like seeing
Yes.
the nice dice rolls.
Yeah, man. And so, and I stuck with it. And there are lots of ways in the game that you can mitigate luck. As a matter of fact, there's one shop in particular where you can set all your dice to 2. And it's a very different experience because that shop doesn't have to navigate the luck in that way. And that might feel actually a little more like Wingspan because it becomes more of that deterministic outcome. You just crunch the numbers, you know you're going to get your 2 every time, and so then for you the puzzle is just min-maxing your economy of your engine.
Min-maxing your average dice rolls.
Yep. But that's just like this one slice of the game, and if you like that, you can play that shop. But ultimately, that's like a side flavor. The real flavor is just having these moments where chaos happens and embracing them. Like I played a game where I had 5 of my workers get eaten across the game, and
in this game, workers are dice.
Yes,
and dice are how you care for your pets. Caring for your pets is how you earn money. Money is points. That's horrible. What you just described, it's horrible.
Yes, thank you, Carlos, for describing my game better than me. Yes, your dice are workers, and they're actually cute little like anthropomorphic.
You call them cubicles?
They're cubicles. It's a race.
I love
they're
it.
a race of sentient cubes, kind of like Modrons from D&D, I guess. Way back in the day, but these are just sentient cubes with arms and legs, and they are your workers, and they walk around the shop and they care for your pets, and they're dice with legs, and so of course they're chaotic. Gosh, where was I going with that?
You lost 5 of them. One game, 5 got eaten.
I made the choice at the beginning of the game that I was going to run a dangerous pet shop. I was going to buy every hazardous pet that I could because in that you're pushing your luck, which is another component of the game, is how much you're going to try to push your luck with pets that need high numbers or pets that are dangerous. And so I bought every dangerous pet I could. And I had 5 workers get eaten by my pets. Now, I actually still did okay. I did lose the game. But here's the thing. I still had fun. And I love telling that story to people when I had 5 different workers get eaten. And if you played the game, you're like, wow, 5 workers. That's
a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot of workers that didn't make it home to mommy and daddy, and they became pet food. And I just think that's hilarious. And so that's a design moment on the extreme that I'm glad's in the game. Darn it.
Yeah.
Well, we talked about, and I know the name has come up a lot in today's conversation, and it wasn't us that brought it up; it was other things. But Wingspan, right? And one of the things that Wingspan gets knocked by gamers all the time is that it's a luck fest. It doesn't have dice, but gamers call it a luck fest game. That it all depends on your card draws and what you drew, and that will dictate. And then the feeder rolls.
What's in the feeder? Yeah,
right.
But
that dictates.
Same thing with Arc Nova, right? What cards come out? The card, there's a lot of luck in a lot of games that I think hardcore gamers don't even realize is there anymore. So when they see other games that are lighter in their mindset, oh, it's just all luck. Well, there's a lot of luck in Dune Imperium too. Like what cards flip, and it's the card that flips what you have for your armies for that turn. Things like that. So there's a lot of
That's a great conversation to have. I like the Wingspan thread because it just shows how relative it is to that particular game, whether people think it's too much luck, right? If you were to play Wingspan,
gamers have knocked Wingspan, and that's the thing is some of the deepest gamers I know have knocked Wingspan, and they say, "Oh, that's too light." But then when I teach it to families, I'm told it's too heavy.
Yeah.
So it's even some of the best games get these knocks. So I would not take that as a. I love where you're headed with the concern about the luck aspect, the mitigation piece. Have me find ways to buy or earn mitigation, and that helps the folks like this guy who's not here today, Mr. Rob. He's the bean counter in the Beans and Dice. He doesn't like the dice. My favorite game, top 5 game for me, Blood Bowl. I'm gonna chuck dice probably 50 times in a match, And you talked about the bell curve. That's why Rob thinks that Blood Bowl is a horrible game. He's wrong because he thinks it's all luck.
Keep
but
showing
I
that
see
empty
as
chair.
who, that guy?
Rubbing it in. Yeah.
The more dice I roll, the more I know that this game is balanced. It's that bell curve will work. You just got to kind of ride the emotional wave.
And you still get the moments. Like, that's what's amazing is that if you roll enough dice over the course of the game, you're still going to get some of those moments that you're going to remember, like that time you got a critical, or that time you just board wiped, or that time you fumbled. I'm just using generic D&D terms.
Oh, those are all the things that happened.
Okay, there you go. And that's like that's just my design philosophy. I want to make games that provide moments, and I think it skews to a younger audience in that way too than this kind of somewhat more deterministic way of doing things.
Well, that's right. I've talked about it before on the show, and I've certainly talked with Carlos and Rob offline as we've messed around at it. I just think in general, the game community needs to reset what we evaluate as heavy, light, and medium games. Because I've been gaming for 30 years, so a medium game for me is a heavy game for most people. I think we do need to look through a lens of this is a light game for me. This is a medium game for people who are not gamers. And I think that's what we need to like people go, oh, Wingspan is too light. Wingspan is not a light game. Wingspan is medium to medium. On a scale of 1 to 5, Wingspan is above a 2.5. If you're looking at, I'm not a hardcore gamer. The only games I play are, Twilight Imperium, then yeah, maybe it's a light game for you. But for the vast majority of people and gamers, it's a medium weight game at worst, right? So I just think in general, the whole, we know BGG tends to skew to hardcore gamers, so games are going to be rated differently. And I just think in general, we need to always think about looking at a game through the lens of someone who's not a gamer or a casual gamer when we talk about how heavy or light a game is. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
No, that's why I put you on the big screen, Bobby. 'Cause I want you to preach.
Yeah.
Now talk a little bit about Ogre Crossing, because you talked about your design philosophy, and I know this is your first design, your first public. Well, it may not be your first design, but the first published design, as I understand it, right?
Right.
Where are you headed? What's going on with Ogre Crossing?
So I have other projects that I'm working on. I actually had another game that was way farther along when the idea for Alien Petshop came to me, and I then decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and back burner this other game. Let's get on Petshop because I think it's got a great theme, and I have a good sense of what this game is going to be, and so I just doubled down on it, and that's the game I made. But as any designer, there are other projects that you have or the games that you're working on. I have other projects that I've been developing and are pretty far along. Let's see, what do I want to say about them? I mean, they're all my website, so it's not like it's
where can they find more information about you? Because we've come towards the end of the show. The phone line's closed, so phone lines are shut down. It's our chance to tell the folks at home what we have going on. How do they find out more about Greg and Ogre Crossing?
So you can visit Ogre Crossing Games. So the website needs a little rework, but Ogre Crossing Games, and it has information about the 3 games that are either published or are being worked on. And I just put into the chat on YouTube if you're interested in joining our Ogre Crossing Discord. I've posted that there. It's set to a very limited number of invites, so if people get to this channel in a month or two, it might not be there. But for folks who are here today or in the next week or so, you can hop on the Discord. It's a great
Wayne,
great
can you drop that into our Discord for the folks at home in the call-in stream?
Yeah, I was looking for it. You dropped it in the chat on YouTube? I'm not seeing it. Where is it at?
It might be in the private chat. We'll get it from you. And even if you send me one via email and I'll get with Wayne, we'll make sure we get it into our Discord for the folks at home.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. I'm always looking for folks who love playing games, and I have a great group of friends and colleagues and other folks who are on the Discord who play test the game. So if you're interested, if you've ever kind of been in a community that makes games and that's something that you think you would be interested in, always looking for more people to come play stuff in development.
So I think your turn. The Board Game Cafe here in Tampa has a couple copies of the game for sale. But if not, and or those of you in the audience that are not members of or nearby to get the game, where can people get a copy of the game if they've missed out on the Kickstarter and they want to get a copy of Alien Petshop?
Yeah, awesome for asking. The easiest thing is just to go to www.alienpetshop.com, and you can find out more information about the game that way. And there's also a link there that'll bring you to the Backer Kit store where you can buy the game. The Backer Kit store, we think of Backer Kit as fulfilling Kickstarters, but you also can go do ongoing fulfillment of the game there. So you can go there. It's a secure website, and there's links to buy the game and the 10-card expansion. Well, it's really a promo pack.
Nice.
Just a promo pack with some new pets in there. But yeah, there's some new pets. And at least for the next few days, it's on a little bit of a holiday sale, so you can pick it up at a slight discount also.
Nice. Perfect.
Well, great timing for the folks at home. Well, Greg, we committed to doing an hour. We did just over that, so we want to stick to our commitments because
Yeah, man.
you know it's tough being a husband, a gamer, a professor, a designer. I can't imagine all the hats you've been throwing on. I'm gonna want to have you. All right, we're gonna do this public, so we get your commitment on video. I'm gonna want to have you back on because I really want to talk more about that education side of it. Like, you know, I'm so interested in what that looks like, feels like in the real world. I got a 19-year-old boy. He's doing his second year of college now. I got a 10th grader, middle schooler, and then a baby.
Awesome.
So, you know, the idea of them going to school to learn something that we love, like, what does that feel like? What does that look like? And that's a whole nother show.
It is
Yeah.
definitely.
And then maybe this
That
time we
is.
can have your alum with us, Rob, George Mason. He can join us, and we can reunite that way.
All right. Rich is begging us to ask. Wait, I need to know if Zeeg was inspired by Plankton from SpongeBob. I guess Zeeg is a character from Alien Pet Shop.
Zeeg was not inspired by Plankton from SpongeBob.
Oh.
No, that would have been a better answer.
You should have just said yes. Yeah, it is. That's all right. So cool.
But
All
there
right,
are other cool little references in there waiting for the observant and these gracious student of sci-fi and all that. There's lots of fun stuff in there. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great. I love talking to game designers and stuff because I always have games in my head, but never want to even go into that realm. So it's always just good to hear of how it takes and how hard of work it is. So we appreciate anybody who's willing to put their thought and their love and passion into developing a game for us to play. It sounds great to me.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for the invite. And I guess we're getting to that time of year where people, I hope you have great holidays. And
Yes.
I will be back on, Carlos. Just send me an invite and we'll work it out.
We will. All right, I'm going to end this broadcast here now for you folks at home. I'm Carlos. That's Wayne, and that's Greg, and we're the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about
How we game.
We want to thank you for watching. We will catch you next Thursday for another live call-in show. We'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
Good night.